Welcome to the Mentor Ubuntu podcast. Our guest this episode is Dr. Xavier Mulenga. He's a psychiatrist with specialty training in addictions and works primarily in Sydney, Australia. He aims to provide comprehensive assessments, education, and treatment to patients with mental health and addiction issues. Xavier is a mental health advocate in the African Australian community and was born and raised in Lusaka, Zambia, my home country. And he immigrated to Australia in 2004, where he later undertook medical training at the University of Wollongong in 2008. After becoming a doctor, Xavier found his calling in psychiatry, which suited his curious nature and love of open conversations, which is what we're all about.
Yeah.
His hobbies include reading psychological thrillers, dancing to Amapiano. If you haven't checked that out, have a listen, it's good vibes. And explaining science fiction to anyone who will listen. Xavier, it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Please tell us about your story and journey.
Thank you very much, Shai. Pleasure to be on this podcast. Love the work you're doing. Gosh, at least you give me the Cliff Notes intro. That's good, But my story, well, I can say definitely born and raised Lusaka, LSK, capital city, guys. We're a bit arrogant, I know. Sorry. Literally came out to Australia when I did my primary and secondary schooling in Zambia. Came out to Australia, and this was during the early 2000s when it was a bit more fashionable if your parents could send you abroad, England, Canada, America, then Australia popped up on the radar. It wasn't on my radar, trust me. I was like, I don't want to go to Australia, I want to go to America. Well, the guys seem to be having fun out there. My mom was like, no America, too much sex and drugs. Canada, too cold. The UK was too expensive. So Australia became this thing, which initially I hated, but then later on it came the right place for me. It's quite laid back, lots of opportunity. And I think I learned a lot more about myself coming out and being away from home, because home is good. But I guess for me, you start this journey of self-reflection, and maybe that's what led to psychiatry training. Because coming to Australia, I was always like, oh, mom, I want to go study film. That's what I initially told my mom. But I did very well academically. So my mom said to me, I think it was a moment of weakness. She was like, you know what, son, we're always telling you do medicine and do, professional stuff, but you've passed so well. You do whatever you want to do, we'll support you. I was like, really? Oh, I want to do film. I want to be the Black Spielberg. My mom was like, she laughed so hard. I almost cried, So that was like killed. So eventually I said, you know what, let me go study biomedical science, do some science degree, because I love the science. So I was just such a geek, man. And then going to medicine, because I think it just fit my personality type. And initially everyone's like, go to medicine, and everyone's got these deep stories. I had a family member with cancer, or this person and that. And I could make up stuff around that. But I think for me, it was good talking to people and treating people who are sick, and also having the knowledge to figure out it's like you're doing Sherlock Holmes of the body. It's a detective story, So I thought that was kind of cool. I've got no really deep down crazy thing where like I saw my best friend die from cancer, so I'm going to become an oncologist. I've got no crazy story like that. But when I came into medicine, I think at the time I finished med school, and I felt really conflicted in so many ways. Like, you're growing up and all your friends are now a doctor. It's such a big thing. You've gone so hard, and everyone's like, oh, now you're going to be a surgeon, right? Or you're going to be a cardiologist. And I was like, I suppose so. That's what everyone wants me to be. And that's when I found psychiatry. And I think psychiatry, the more psychiatry I do, the harder it is to explain why I got into it. Because before, I got into it based on very superficial things, but the more I know, I'm just like, wow, you know what? I did have a friend who had committed suicide in high school. We never talked about that. I've got family members who've got drinking problems. We don't talk about that. I've had my own episodes where I felt really down and out or insecure. My behaviors have been very and I thought psychiatry provided some insights, not all the answers, but insights into what was driving that, so that I became really passionate. And even more so to the point where it wasn't sexy when I got into it. Like 2014, it's like 2013 is when I started applying, and everyone I'll talk to is like, sorry, my brother, not surgery. Are you sure? Not surgery. You're doing psychiatry. And this is before mental health really became a movement like it is now, So getting in there, I think, first thing, I found a lot about what people's perceptions were of me. B, I started doing my own thing. I think that became a very important step when you start doing things for yourself. And psychiatry became that bandwagon where I was like, oh, learn the theories, learn how it applies to me. Then also do later work doing some therapy, and then getting to meet people who are going through the same things. Because even though Black people are not a monolith, a lot of the experiences we have around vulnerability and mental illness and addictions are quite similar. I can talk to a Black brother from Nigeria, Barbados, Brazil, who have similar stories. And that always got me thinking, wow, it's a similar thread for all of us. Um, I don't know, so I guess that's what got me to push through and do a lot of the training to a point where I've just about finished it. Trust me, way too long. You people should do dentistry. Don't do medicine. This is my new reflection. But it was good because now I'm a stage where I've got the training and can help people and just direct them. It's not even just about me. It's you get people like yourself. And now, like I say, mental health is so people talk about it a lot to a point where people don't even take it seriously sometimes, but definitely way better than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, let alone 2 decades ago. And that for me is a good thing. And that's so many things about me there. I just sort of went to my training, but I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is the journey I've had has been a journey about sort of the discovery for myself, building my own path, and also learning my weaknesses and then trying to work with other people to overcome common challenges. Because I think a lot of the times when you're going on this Black excellence pathway, which I hate that word, it's such a double-edged sword, is that, or phrase rather, it's just, it's you don't have to go at it alone. It does take a village to raise a child. And just like the way you and I are here talking, someone's going to listen to it and hopefully to spark something in them that they'll go look at, Google something else. Actually, maybe I've got depression. Maybe I should go to my GP. Maybe I should talk to someone, because you and I are normalizing the conversation for them. And that's a fun thing to be part of. And as dark as mental health can get, because I'm a very upbeat, extroverted guy, and people are like, and people telling you about suicide every day and addiction problems and trauma and child abuse or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't mean we can't share some sort of commonality and be not upbeat about it. But those serious topics, I wanted to a point that people feel so comfortable telling them that we don't have to hide it. Because I think the more taboo or secretive or serious you make a topic, the less likely people are going to take it seriously, or bring it up. But when you make it so conversational, and it's like, okay, this guy is talking about it, depression, but in a casual way, and it's like, okay, it's not scary. Sure, it's an important thing we have to keep an eye on, but there's treatment. So even the way you and I talk about it's not like, oh, I know other people got depression, but I don't have depression, man. Me, we don't have to do this facade. And I think that's been so fun in this space. And it's a lot about me. Other thing I was going to say, to take away the medicine, I'm very, very geeky. All doctors are super geeks. Any woman who's ever dated us will tell you that these guys are geeks. But just that people put you on a pedestal, it's like, oh, that's a doctor. And it's like, literally, they come to my house, they find my sci-fi collection. They'll be like, sorry, man, what's happening here? It's a lot. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it, obviously. But that's sort of my intro if I'm going to give one. But sorry, last thing I was going to say, it's always something to add, is having that connection to being in one place but still connected back home. So, I'm Zambian, obviously, always born and raised, will be. I'm Australian citizen now, and now just trying to do this two different homes and two different identities. And it's tricky because the more I live in Australia, the more you are removed from Zambian dynamics. And the politics is on right now. The election is on this year, so it's very, very heated back at home. And then, but I'm not going to get a chance to vote even. I didn't get a chance to get a voter's card. I couldn't go back. It's COVID, and then now you think it's tricky trying to console those that, am I one or the other? You're both. It's just that at this time in my life, I'm living in Australia. So what I can influence around me tends to be here. But obviously because of the internet and Zoom, you and I can have this discussion from Manchester to just, Australia, Sydney.
Feel like you're cool. Home anyway.
Yeah, and like you and I across the lake, we can still chat, and it's the same issues we have, the same gripes.
I love that. Like, I've enjoyed just soaking in your introduction, and there's so much there that I'm sure we're definitely going to get into as we go. 100%. So I'll personally thank you, Xavier, for that beautiful introduction, because it goes fantastically well into our topic for today, when today men talk about caring and connecting, which I feel like that touches on why we're here and how we sort of care about everyone else as well as ourselves. And we've connected, and sounds like you've done that from quite a young age up until even what you're studying. But before we get into that, firstly, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you mentally? right now?
Oh, 1 to 10 at the moment. I'd say 8 actually.
Fantastic.
Mm.
What's got you
So
up
we're talking
so
about 10 being the good side, 10 being
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's just checking,
I'll be like, fantastic. Oops.
yeah. Oh no, 8. I'd say it mostly because yeah, no, I'm 8. So let me say it's that. Yeah.
I love that. And I love also you said you're quite extroverted, quite positive, and I
Mm.
think it's a gift to have people like that around you because I get that vibe, I get that energy for you. So
Yeah.
link to that because I also know as you were doing your introduction, you mentioned that you've had your moments where you're sort of low as well, and
Mm.
you've nicely gone into this idea of living in Australia, having these two sides. Now you're an Australian citizen, but remaining Zambian and
Yeah.
don't know what the whole sense community is like and everything. So, how would
Yes.
you describe your own mental health story, like overall? Or do you have any particular mental health stories that highlight a particular situation you overcame or just your approach to
Oh
dealing with
yeah,
mental
yeah.
health?
No, everyone's different. Everyone's always got a mental story, whether they want to say it or not. That's a different story. That's what I always tell people. I think I came from like a background where like significant family members had mental health issues. Just because for privacy, I won't go into who and what. And it was interesting growing up. It was so confusing because it brings about lots of inconsistency. Because as a kid, you barely know you don't know anything, let alone mental health. And then it's also these inconsistencies where it's an uncle here or parent or whatever. And I remember I used to have so many questions, like why do people behave this way? And back at home, you just get told one-liners. It's just like that. Well, that's how it is after a drink, or this person and that. So I think as a kid, I remember growing up, I was very inquisitive. I was very annoying. I used to ask too many questions. I was a brainiac, I suppose, but I was so annoying. I think even to teachers and friends, like, man, just like asking questions, and not even questions about the academics or the work. It's like, why do you do this? Like, why'd you do this thing? Like, so you're cheating on your girlfriend with her best friend, but what reason why? What are you doing, man? And the guy's like, dude, it is what it is, man. And that's how it is back at home. People deflect and it is what it is, and even joke, it is what it is. I think about it, it's so deceived in us. But I think it came to a head when I came to Australia. So I'd say the first time I felt really low, I guess I've never really been diagnosed with any mental illness like depression and anxiety, but I've definitely had depressive episodes. So when I first came to Australia, I really underestimated how much I needed community. I
Yeah.
was just this random Zambian. There were no Zambians at the time in Brisbane. I opted not to go to Perth. Every Zambian and his dog is in Perth or Melbourne. But I was like, I thought I was above that. I was like, I don't want to go to Australia to be with other Zambians. I'm going to go to the East Coast. So Brisbane was just the one that ended up being the more affordable one and had good weather. And I got there and I was so extremely lonely, my guy. I remember I cried when I got on the flight. So, the barriers at the international airport in Lusaka. So, yeah, saying goodbye to your family. There's one part where only you can go, only passengers can pass through your family. You have to leave them behind, you're waving at them. So I was smiling up until that point. Then I went behind the barrier, man. I started crying, man. I'm filling out this international boarding pass. And obviously, I just remember my dad saying, like, men don't cry, men don't cry. Come on, come on, Xavier, you can't cry. And I was like, I'm busy crying when this Australian lady, this older woman, just watching me crying over this thing. And she's like, are you okay? Then I don't know what made me tell her the truth. I was just going to tell her, no, I'm fine. Leave me alone, white lady. I don't know you. And I was 19, so I felt so ashamed. I was crying in a public place. I remember feeling so ashamed of that episode. Later on, I just turned it around but saw it for what it was. A kid who was just really venturing out on his own. And I realized that my family was behind, my parents, my friends, like they were never going to be accessible to me in time of crisis. I was going to be on the other side of the world, right?
Yeah.
So this woman just says sort of like, hey, I'm just going to Australia for the first time. And it's the first time I've traveled internationally without my parents or anyone in my family. And I just don't know what's gonna happen next. And she was like, that's and she was very kind. Like lots of women are generally, I guess, when or older people when they see people in distress. I guess she had a nurture and she was like, you know what? Yeah, it just will be like that. But you know what? If I can help you. And she often just helped me and we filled out the form together. She even arranged so I could sit next to her on the flight. I remember she actually made so we got up, she got me a soft drink, I got a Coca-Cola. Actually, I was a Fanta guy, so I got a Fanta. And I was still serving it in the glass bottles,
Oh
so I was drinking the bottle.
yeah.
She poured in a glass, I'm there from the bottle. I was just like, it was funny looking back. She just said, because she was Australian. I don't know what she was doing there. I suppose she had family. I forgot what the story was, but she made me realize that I was going to be okay. But when I got to Australia, it still came back and I was alone for that first year, man. I'd call home and say, how's things going? Oh, things are good, mom. So I was lying to my mom. I was miserable. didn't have many friends. I met some Zimbabweans, but they weren't Zambians. Then I realized how tribal we are, because they're Shona, I'm Zambian, and we've got this funny rivalry where we're the poorer cousin, I suppose. And I met Nigerians and Australians, and I just didn't know where I was. And I wasn't even the smartest guy in the room now. Now at university, there's no more I'm top 5 in the class. Now you're out of 400, you're like maybe 200 and something. In fact, they don't even grade you that, just get your credit or distinction, whatever you get. And I remember thinking, I'm not even smart here. I'm nothing, because all my esteem. So that was probably my first love, because then everything I knew about myself was based on my parents, their money, my own money, my tribe, my academics, and then I had none of those. And then I realized that I'd been using those as a crux, like many people do, but I didn't realize how bad it was until then. I realized, I remember thinking, you know what, you ain't shit, for lack of a better word, you know, and it really put me down. And then one of this really good friend of mine, she's a Zimbabwean girl, she was like, hey, she said, you want to be a friend? She just befriended me. I just was a miserable, irritable guy. It's like, I felt like so gypped from the experience. I don't know what the world owed me, but I thought it owed me a lot. So I was very angry, but then she just got me, she would take me to parties. I got to meet other Zimbabwean guys, and I started building a small community. There were some church people. I'm not super religious now, but like, you know, back then it was like, you know, the Pentecostal guys came, like I was Catholic. So I was like, oh, these Pentecostal guys. But anyway, they're nice. But they took me out, they showed me how to shop, and people really embraced me. Then I got to go meet lots of Australians on campus who got to show me about Australia. And then over the course of a year, things got better. So even though I was lying to everyone that things were going well, because if you want to hear a lie from a Black man, ask them how they're going. We're always going well. There's no Black man who actually says we're not going well. So when you ask me how you're going out of 10, I was like, oh, today's actually a good week. You know, I was like, I don't say 10 out of 10 because there's so much stress in the background. But if it had been a 6, I'd have told you, you know? And that's very hard because all Black men were just programmed, I'm good. Even your girlfriend who knows you're not good, I'm good. I'm good. How are you going? I'm good. I'm great. I'm excellent. It's like, we've got no other vocabulary to say, actually, I'm struggling. And I remember when my mom called me up and said, should we send your brother over? I was so lonely. I was like, yes, send him over. Despite having such a negative experience, it was also, my brother realized when he got here, I was like, what the hell have you brought me to, man? And I think there was some mild resentment. Yeah, you love it. I was just like, I'm lying to people, like, oh man, I'm social here. It's like the people were so friendly, which they were, but I was so isolated. I had no identity and I was quite miserable. Yeah. Looking back, I often wonder if I was depressed for a bit, really, man, well and truly, because there were some moments, it never got really dark, I'd say. And I guess I was never a big drinker. I started drinking when I came to Australia because my mom was very strict. So I think I only had like 2 beers in my whole life in Zambia before I ever left Zambia. And this was 19, I left. So people look at me like, you're weird, man. I was like, have you met my mom, man? This is some serious parenting, you know? And then I think when my brother came, it was a bit better. But then my brother also, he had to have his own journey because I had cut him off. And you know, it's funny, like if I had known what I'd known, would I have said things different? Like I hate playing time travel games, you know, because you can't change it. But
I think it's still important to share. I think this is where hindsight is very valuable. And although you can't go and change the past, that's someone's present. So you could affect someone else's future. So I think it's still worth sharing it.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, that was probably the first time. But when my brother came, we picked up, and then I did start getting friends, and I started figuring things out. I got away, and I think a lot of that was reaching out. And I always go into books. I'm like, oh my God, what books can I read to understand what's going on? And that helped me understand a few things. I got help. I went to the academic counselors because I was doing some courses. They said, no, don't do this course. If you want to give you a chance to go medicine, do this and that. And I just gave guidance. And then for my friends, the church people, like everyone who came around me, supported me. And I realized that nothing to do with where I'm from, my parents, my tribe, my academics. They were just trying to help me because I needed help, which I remember feeling so conflicted, like, oh, I need help. I feel bad for even asking, you know? It's like, and that's a very common feeling. And when my patients come tell me that, like, I feel like a failure that I've come to see a psychiatrist. I have failed. Can you imagine? That's how my introductions are. It's never like, hey, Doc, how are you doing? It's like, I'm here. You know, that's why it's like I
feel like seeing you is my rock bottom, Doc.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it really is. And that's where I start the journey. So everyone thinks that I come in and I've come to save the day. They look at me like they have failed everyone and themselves when they come in the office very often. And they feel that coming to see a psychiatrist, like no one's going to see a psychiatrist because things are good, you know? So just by definition, if you're coming to see me, things can't be good. Just by definition. Unless you're a long-time client and you're stable and you're coming back for a checkup and stuff, that's different. But if you come and see me for the first time, things are not going your way mentally or physically, you know? I mean, I could talk about other experiences as well. So I had that one. Then there was one around relationships. And I realized when I first got heartbroken. It was just this girl left me for this guy who was very suave, handsome guy. And I remember thinking like, okay, I need to be suave. I need to just be like taking girls' numbers and names. I need to just be sleeping with everyone and being promiscuous. That's how the cool guys did it. And that was true. That's how the cool guys did it. They were, and it was so well known. And it's funny, you start buying into that, but you still feel quite empty. And then now it's funny, in training, I meet a lot of those cool guys. So I meet lots of people who are flying high or even flying low. Like, that's the thing about mental health. You can meet people, if they're CEO of a company and they've got mad money, everyone's like, oh, this person has got real problems. They have real problems. I meet someone who's obviously homeless. For all of us, we're more empathetic because homelessness, really, we know there are problems there, But then you have to find empathy in different things. Everyone just travels at different lanes, and mental health is the great, what I call the great equalizer, because it can get everyone. Everyone's like, oh, rich people don't, how many rich celebrities have committed suicide? But then even then I tell people, forget about that. How many people in our community have committed suicide, but we just keep it hush hush? People pretend as if we don't have suicides in Black communities. I'm like, no. This guy, when someone says, oh, my friend passed on, it's like, whoa, dude, you're like 29. So how'd your friend pass? Like, unless it was a car accident. And even then there might be a drink driving history behind that. Even then there's a suicide. It's like, oh no, something medical or HIV. People are very vague, but if you're a young person dying, that's not how it's supposed to be. I mean, don't get me wrong, anyone can die from anything, but a lot of the time when the suicide rates amongst Black communities is very high. It's just that we hide it or we don't talk about it. And then I say, don't even look at the celebrities, look at your own people. We're all going through it, and that's where you have to try and change perspective for people. But yeah, sorry. So mental genesis. So fast forward, I should mention when things got better was, I feel whenever you're doing, I'll call it the Black excellence path, where you're going, you're succeeding. So every time you make a big step, your community rises up for you. So when I go to med school, everyone's like, ah. But there's one part when I was applying the basic science degree, everyone's like, okay, you're going to do it. Then halfway there, it's like, are you sure you're going to get into med school, man? It's pretty hard. You get the haters start talking more than the supporters. Then you get into med school, everyone's like, oh, we knew it. We knew you're going to make it. Oh. Then you're like, yeah, man, I made it. And then you start going. Then everyone's like, are you sure you're going to finish it? Because med school is one thing, but are you going to finish med school? I'm like, damn, how am I going to finish? Then fast forward, I go in psychiatry training. Then people really told me from the get jump, psychiatry training is rubbish. Like, why are you doing psychiatry? To my face, they look at me like, why waste your brain cells, man, doing psychiatry? And that was the time where I started it. I still remember having doubts, but I remember I started getting my own therapy like in 2017. And I think that was a time when what was happening there? Oh, I counted relationships. So relationships for Black men are always the crux when they come to therapy. It's a joke, but it's true. Even the ones I see who come to me, your marriage is breaking apart, or your girlfriend found you're cheating, or your relationship. There's something about girls and relationships and men. If it's not working out, they'll come find a therapist, whether it's your mom you're going to talk to, or your best friend, or whatever. But it's always women that are going to talk to. It's never your broski, where it's like, I mean, some people are very confident. They can talk to their men friends like that. But for me, I remember seeking out a psychologist because I was so scared to bring it out to other people, because you're a doctor in mental health. How can you be talking mental health issues? You should have the answers. You're doing it. It's almost like a cardiologist having a heart attack. How's that supposed to happen, man? It's like an endocrinologist with diabetes. Like,
you should know better.
Exactly. So I went to see a psychologist who was good at treating doctors, because we're quite neurotic and we're very, oh my God, we're just a handful. Treating doctors is a pain. But ultimately, she started giving me all these insights, and she just told me, I was so critical, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think I'm going to make it, this and that. I don't know if I made my parents proud and this and that. And then she'll say, like, you're enough. Xavier, I just want to let you know that you're enough. And I remember thinking, even when you felt that, right? You're enough. I felt it too in the seat, but I couldn't sit with it. I was like, ugh, are you sure? Like, nah, that's next subject. I tried to skip one. And she's like, nope, let's take back and sit back. You are enough. Can you say it? I didn't even say that session. I said, nah, fam, I'm not saying it. Can you imagine? I was just like, I couldn't. And she asked me, why not later? And she was like, I don't know if I've achieved enough. And then she started telling me all the things I'd done, people you've helped, your family. So you did finish medicine, but for you, that's not enough. Now you're doing psychiatry training, despite people not even liking it, but you see there's a need for it. And you still think not enough. Are you, then you start reflecting and seeing that there are lots of deficits, emotional deficits I discovered I had because I'd focused so heavily on the academic and the work, which a lot of Black men are good at, distract, like, Jay-Z type laser focus in the business, but their life is shambles. The rest of it, like a lot of guys are good in the workplace because the workplace has got structure, policies, support groups, meetings, all the things. If you applied them in the rest of your life, would also help you too. But because you're like, oh no, it's not work. I don't need other people. I don't talk to other people. I don't have meet check-ins. How many check-ins do we have at work? All the work thing is like, hey, it's an annoying meeting, but like, it's, but it's a process and you're quite supported. And you can do that outside of work. And it's actually about you. And you're the center of your world. You are the person who's going to live your life. And it's so cheesy when you hear those lines, but it's true, man. Only you can live your life, and no one else can.
Yeah, because I guess we're more used to hearing people perhaps tell us that the world doesn't revolve around us. So
yes,
it might be difficult to identify ourselves as being the center of our universe, if that makes sense, like value ourselves so highly. Wow. There's a lot there. I love it though. I love it.
Don't stop me talking. When you say mental journey, I'm like, this guy, I hope he's got a book of Bible out there.
we're here to listen to you talk, man. Like, because you touched on some incredible points, and I see why you made the Sherlock Holmes comparison at the beginning, because for two reasons. It's almost, there is this elementary aspect of identifying the highs, the lows, and to the point that even a stranger in the airport can see when like, oh, it's obvious, like you should be feeling this way, and I can give you a hand, have a seat next to me, have something. Like, it's elementary when we really think about it. Even being there for someone, or we know at our core why we feel like we're not enough. Like, to feel like you haven't achieved enough is, yes, you may have a lot you have planned for yourself, but that to some extent avoids but right now you're enough.
Yes.
Without achieving more. And even before you achieved what you achieved, you're enough. Like, let's address that. Like, this idea of go away and be your own Sherlock Holmes is really important. And more important than that is to remember, as brilliant as Sherlock Holmes is, and as observational as he is, which we all need to probably examine ourselves and seek perhaps a professional who can help us with that. Sherlock Holmes had Watson. All the time. Like, he's number one, but Watson's there and he needs him. He needs him.
Definitely did.
So I also really liked the fact that this isn't a one-man band, I did this, I overcame. It is very much tied to various things. Like, you even mentioned feeling so isolated, and then to some extent, you can see how the negative spiral can sort of kick in, where you go somewhere new you've been top dog, you've been performing, you've been crushing it, life, school, I'm the man, and you go somewhere that the rules are different, the competitors are different, you're no longer shining. And if that was what made you feel like, look at me, I'm center and I'm valuable and I can do something, and now it's like, wow, it's turned up. I'm not special. I mean, and again, we say this in whatever way you might hear it, but when's the last time you felt special? It matters. It matters. It can't just be on your birthday. Like, and maybe it's not every day, but you should be feeling special, whether it's for something you've done for yourself, a compliment you've received. And I very much like the way that you phrased why perhaps, even especially for men, we might find the workplace somewhere to thrive. We have these rules and we know what to do in order to perform. We have somewhere we can get acknowledged. I feel like the gym is even similar. Like, we go there, we know what we have to do, what we have to achieve. We can get some sort of ranking. I might not bench what you bench, but as long as I'm crushing my set and my session, everyone still gives me that respect, I think, ultimately. And you also mentioned some of these things you grappled with, which I'm sure everyone grapples with. This is the thing with anything we go through in life. Everyone else is kind of going through it one way or the other.
Yes, they are.
This identification you had of, I've gone somewhere, I'm feeling isolated, I'm feeling lonely, it's not going how I thought. let me get my brother over here. God, I heard Misery Loves Company.
Exactly.
But
Yeah, and he did not let me forget that, man. Remember, like, the doctor was like, you got me to this. You've been lying the whole year, man, telling mom and us. It was.
how did you address? Because I think so. Along this point, you've
Mhm.
been feeling isolated. You've been
Yes,
essentially telling the people back home. You've been putting on a facade, right? You've been
yes.
not being honest about how you're actually feeling. Your brother now
Mhm.
comes over. I don't know if it's also one of those situations where you're there, your head's down, so you're not really calling and connecting as much as you perhaps would have. And
Mm.
now he's in the same space. Did that change the relationship dynamics? Did you perhaps initially think he's going to now be a key part of my community? And maybe, like you
Mm.
say, he turns up and he has to live his own life. He's his own individual.
Yeah.
Did,
Oh
did
man,
things
it
change
did.
there?
Oh
Mm.
no, it definitely did change there. Before I start thinking my brother, I was going to say Sherlock is good. He had Watson, but also if you read the original Sherlock Holmes,
Yeah.
he had a cocaine problem. He used to inject
Oh,
cocaine. There
yeah.
was morphine. He had an opium addiction actually, or something like that. So just aside,
He
so
was on the
Sherlock
cut.
Holmes, he had a problem and he also couldn't get with women, but liked women. Then later on, he got a woman and retired from the game and he did beekeeping. Anyway, long story short, that's just, I love Sherlock too much. But essentially, going back to the relationship with my brother, it did change our relationship. I think I did initially want to put so much pressure on this is my buddy who has me. And then it really didn't pan out the way I thought it was going to. Because he had to do his own thing. Because he had come a bit of frustration because he realized the limitation of the isolation too. My brother was very more expressive about his vulnerability. He was like, fam, straight up lie. I mean, he didn't really fight me about it. It's that big brother thing where I was like, okay, I guess I'm here. Let's just make the best of it. But I know it was a struggle for both of us in the early years. We always laugh at our Brisbane years being really the formative years of our time in Australia
Yeah.
because we were sort of just doing our own thing. And I realized I couldn't just be calling out my brother because the relationship, I look back, was never even like that before. My relationship with him when I was back at home and top dog was that I'm your brother. I'll look after you. I've got influence. I know people. That's my brother. But it's not if I was talking to him that much and saying, hey, brother, how you going? And I realized that's something where when you raise the older brother, it's not even about the emotional thing. It's just overseeing that everyone's doing right by the tribe. My father comes and says, hey, look after your brother. I'm like, yes, brother, I'm looking after you. Behave so that I can get us, and I realized it's very hierarchical. And my brother, he's never been that type of guy. And even at school, I think I was an annoying brother to have because he was like, he's 1 year younger than me. So he was always in the grade below me. And it's like, I was top in my class in primary school, high school. I also did athletics. I was the captain of the team he was in. So it's like, oh, your brother's a runner, your brother's the academic one. So every class would come into after me. It's like, oh, your brother does well in maths. Do you do well in maths? My brother's like, no, I'm not a top fiver. I'm a top 10er. He was a top 10 candidate in the class. And it's like, how can you be like your brother? And like, I look back at my brother's reports. I remember thinking my brother was not as smart as me, but I remember going back to the reports. Mom was like, this guy's a top 10 person. This guy was doing well, but we still wanted him to do like you. I used to get those merit, those award certificates for academic merit.
I don't know.
Oh, you know, neither did my brother, I suppose, man. But he got by on just being himself, and he was more likable. I was just respected because I was a smart guy. So and it's funny how that in your mind, when even that you're getting that respect of academics, so to lose all that. But then even when it came to high school, my brother came and he didn't like the high school. But once again, my brother's trying to dictate things. And then looking back, I never really had that good relationship about having real talk with my brother until we came to Australia. Then we were just on our own. And we started having difficult discussions. There was time he wasn't doing so well academically, and we had to sit down about that. But it was all about just different things we were going through and how we were just processing being isolated and trying to acclimatize to Australia. And those were probably some of the best times I had with my brother. I remember after that breakup with this guy who's left me for this DJ Rodney. I remember you.
You're on
But
blast, son.
I know on blast. It's funny, even those things. My brother actually sat me down. I was like, because he had gone through heartbreak already. My brother had been dating for. He was more well versed with women than I was. I was like, I can't believe she left me, man. And then with my big ass glasses, I'm going places, man. I'm doing a Steve Urkel. It's all about narcissism and ego, really. My ego is just damaged. I thought no one would ever leave this. But my brother actually just sat me down and said, you know what, you need to distract your things. Let's go to the gym. We started going to the gym because he used to be a gym guy, but not like heavy, just like for fitness and just to get off your system. And I remember thinking, this is the first time I had gone to my brother for help and he helped me. And and that really hit me. It's like those are the moments you think back and think, you really helped me. So And I remember I had so much respect for him at that point. And I think at that point, the dynamic started changing. I'm like, you know what? You are way more smart than me, but more emotional intelligence. You're definitely the guy who he feels. He used to be very honest about if he was going through stuff or not. I'd be like, nah, everything's okay. Everything's okay. My brother's like, no, it's not okay. Send money. You know, my brother would tell you, you know, and that's why my mom liked my brother. She used to say that him, I knew where he always was. You're always cagey. So if he always thought I was lying to my mom, mom's like, no, those phone calls were very strange. You sounded like you were stressed, but you're not saying that. You're saying I'm okay. So I wasn't even fooling anyone. We think we're fooling people. We're really not. Even my patients can come tell me and say, oh, I'm a functional alcoholic. I'm a high functioning alcoholic. No one can notice. I'm like, your supervisor notices. Your wife notices. Trust me, they just might not say it because you're not being as messy as you could be. But your slow decline into the rock bottom is being very well noticed by people, despite what you say. So that's when, you know, those type of things which really made our relationship so much stronger. And even now, like he's about to get married. So now I'm like, wow, he's getting married before me. First of all, I was like, whew, stress off my back. Then I was like, oh man, I was meant to be getting married. How come I haven't got my life together around relationships? But my brother has, you know, but then that's not coming from a place of love. You have to look at more some like, brother, I'm happy that you found someone you can commit to and you've found someone you can share your truth with. You know, when you meet her, she knows a lot about his life and, you know, they share openly. I'm kind of like, so you just told her that? Yeah, I need to. She's my future wife. I'm like, damn, I don't even tell my girlfriend stuff like that, you know? But that's just, and it says more about me than him, you know? And sometimes that's when I realize that, wow, this guy, I've got so much to learn from him. And that's when I think giving my brother his space, he teaches me so much. And I always have to make sure I tell him, because I never used to tell my brother or people if they impress me. If I think you're doing something impressive, I'll tell you, I'm very impressed by what you're doing. So even you guys, Mental Talk UK, hey man, I'm impressed that we're having these discussions out there. I'm impressed that you're going out there and doing your thing. And we should say it a lot more, because we're all like being like, hey, big man, I see you. But like, no, I see you, but also I'm impressed and I love your bravery and persistence. Because I'm not like starting a podcast, everyone thinks it's easy. Oh, you just record and upload it. Because I know how difficult it can be. So now I shut up, you know?
Nah, man.
Yeah, you know?
Take all hats off. And I think for me, this is where I'll say if you haven't come across it, do search for Black Boy Magic,
Ah,
because
yeah.
that was a absolutely insightful and just brilliant way of getting men to talk about mental health and some of the things they're going through. So if you've not seen it, this is something I think Xavier worked on with a few other men. Like it looked like you had a banging meal. And then after the meal, everyone's just like chilling and just talking about their different experiences and their different perceptions as well about
Yes.
mental health and just life, really, because that's what, although we label these things as mental health, or perhaps
Yes.
we might look at mental illnesses and all sorts, the fact of the matter is a lot of them are just to do with life. And they
Yes.
tip the scales. Like if they tip the scales too much one way, they start to maybe encroach on our mental health or
Yep.
manifest as a mental illness. If they
Mm.
go the other way, we are doing so well, we don't even think about or acknowledge them. So I feel like, but that was a really great way. So that might be definitely a great starting point, a wonderful resource. I'd highly
Yeah.
encourage anyone to check that out. So I think it's Black Boy Magic.
Yeah, Black Boy Magic. You just go on YouTube. You just see like I think there are 4 parts. We should have. I don't know. Maybe we should put a link on this. I mean, it actually comes
Oh
out from
yeah.
your podcast. But it's just like we. It was such a pleasure because that thing we actually filmed like 3.5 hours of content, but we had to distill it down. So we went into so many things. But I remember, despite the technical things of that day, we were supposed to be outside, but inside raining. So that's why we're inside shot. We're meant to have a barbecue and just be the idea was just to be talking around food and make it casual. Because like I said, whenever you say mental health, with even though it's important, Black people, especially Black men, get turned off. If you said like, you know, we have to find a different word. Even the way we use Black Boy Magic, just because our director was a female and she had done that before, we're like looking back, we should have named it something more masculine. Not because we're worried about that, but it did turn off people, and we said, oh, you know what, our title itself is turning off the people we're trying to target. So that's something I learned about the creative space and marketing. I never thought about that before until I met with these people, and then people said, hey, listen, fam, I'm glad my wife put me onto this with my girlfriend, because I would never have looked up Black Boy Magic on my own, because Black Boy Magic in our mind sounds more like Pride Month, like it is, you know, it sounds, people thought it would sound more effeminate and gay and too to one guy saw it. One guy called it moist or something. You know, we had pictures.
Wow, these words.
I know.
Man.
Trust me, no, lucky I did psychiatry. No one actually says nice things to a psychiatrist a lot of the time. We're used to negative feedback. It's like, you know what, you didn't help me with anything. I'm like, oh, I've tried. You know, but it's like overall, the majority of it was actually positive. But I remember it was interesting how a lot of people's girlfriends and wives got them onto it. It wasn't really the guys on their own. And that's in fitting with how many men eventually start dealing with their mental health. Your mother, sister, your partner, female, some feminine energy will come in the mix and bring that up. And then it's up to you to then go out and do it, because they won't do it naturally with their friends. I think with the younger men generation, they're a bit more open. They're definitely more, what I'd say, happy to share that vulnerability, to the point that some of us even feel it's uncomfortable. Like, hey, that guy's just talking about his depression in the open. That's a bit, come on, man. You can't just be talking about depression, feeling suicidal one week, then okay, the next, man. Who talks like that? You know, you know, it's like, that just says a lot about us and where we're from. And also it's a bit of maybe anger that we couldn't express the same thoughts we had, you know?
Because you mentioned, I think you also mentioned consistency earlier. And I think that's one of those ideas where as a man, as a kid, as a young boy, whatever, you are looking for this consistency. And you sometimes, my opinion here, if someone was to say to you, oh, I'm feeling depressed today, or oh, I had suicidal thoughts, and they're okay now, you'd be like, seeking attention, man. Come on, like if you're down, be consistently down, then I buy into it. Like, because we compartmentalize things, and because we're not vocal about it, although that's the day that the final straw broke the camel's back.
Yes,
we're not curious enough, which I think is that whole thing of what you were saying about, say, being nerdy, wanting to research. I think it's all about curiosity. We're not curious enough to ask something as simple as, so when did this first start, or how long have you been feeling like this, or anything like that. And that gives you the thread.
Yes,
because like we could go back to, you're in Australia and you're figuring these things out, but you start to then realize, oh, I've placed my value on my academic achievements and what I was able to do, and I've been getting that since this point in life. I've not been placing my value on other things. So it then becomes quite evident or obvious, elementary, that when you reach this point, like, oh, boom, no wonder, because everything that has held my world together has now crumbled. Like the floors disappeared from beneath me. I now need to figure out. And the reason I love the view of Black Boy Magic is because I think there's a Beyonce song about Black girl magic.
Yes.
And I won't lie, even as say enlightened as I am sort of now around these things, I was like, Black Boy Magic, what? but because I won't big my, I love Beyonce. She Queen Bee, it's all good. And I like that song. And I was like, I'd not thought about Black Boy Magic as much. I think there's a couple UK artists, it might be Bashi, I need to double check, done something around that where they're talking just about this positive way about, you know, like Black. And it made me realize, even some of the conversations you were all having, part of the importance you placed on having those open conversations about mental health was so that the young Black boys or Black men listening have the conversations earlier. Also, so that the older generation listen and also know where we're at and maybe find it helpful or useful, because we're not saying you have to have these talks all day, every day, but we're saying you have to be aware, and they should be part of your, I don't know, your handbook or tool on your tool belt. You should be able to have this. You should be able to flex between this and your standard every day. It shouldn't like stomp you. And the idea of promoting it as Black Boy Magic and also being okay with that, I was like, yeah, because we'll talk about Black excellence, like you said, which sometimes I probably don't know if I'm in agreement with you on this, of it feels like we're pedestalizing something, and that image is almost a perfection image. Right? Because where there is Black excellence, because sometimes we'll say perfection is the enemy of excellence, where there is Black excellence, you're so high up on what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to carry and present yourself. Anything falling shorter than that then doesn't classify or qualify for Black excellence. So
Yes.
if you put, I'm just doing okay, having a great day,
Yeah.
and post that as Black excellence, people will then go, well, you ain't got the G Wagon. What you got
Exactly.
in your bank? It makes you
Yeah.
then feel like, so I'm not enough. I'm not valuable enough. I think when you transition as a boy from, say, 10 to 13, puberty starting to hit, the rules change. I think this is very well known. Like the rules change, school yard rules start to kick in.
Yeah.
You have to be a good boy, try and do your chores. Yeah, that
Yep.
works there. You
Yeah.
now start getting whooped for that in school. And post 13, when you're in that 13 to 16 to 18 phase, like I feel like for most of us, this is where the proper guards go up because there it's almost like I can't be a punk anymore now.
Yeah.
About to be
You gotta grow up.
18.
You gotta be a man.
Yeah, I'm getting into the manhood, like,
Mm-hmm.
and the rules have changed again. There's often no one there to guide you through. There's often no one having the conversation about how it feels when everything's like, well, I was just getting to grips with everything. Like, it's not good enough anymore. Like, oh, I've got to use different lines. I've got to do this, behave
You gotta
this
up your
way.
game, son. You gotta go.
Yo, you best you best join the cool gang. And this is where sometimes I get it carries on in life where
Yeah.
that being perceived as geeky or nerdy or anything like that, being curious is almost
Mm.
very unattractive.
Oh
It
yeah.
boils down to very, for a guy at the very least. Like we all know, like high
Yeah.
school, you got a bit of a physique on you, playing sports, that
Those
ranks you
guys
much
were.
higher.
Yeah.
Being smart and having those extra advantage, but having cash, that's so comes first. It's all a fun life because let's be real, most people haven't tasted real life. They don't really know what's
Yeah.
what. So in
Yeah.
that safe environment, experimental environment, if you
Yeah,
will,
I
it's an
know.
unofficial
It's
environment,
nice
man.
to feels like
School,
sometimes.
some bubble, man. Like that pops when you graduate. It's different. And then when you transition into adulthood and you have to now pretty much A, look after yourself, B, especially I think if you're of African heritage, you start thinking about looking after your parents.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure you probably know this saying from Zambia, Mayo Papa, Naninka Papa. Like, mom carry me and I'll carry
Oh
you.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Dads don't tend to carry you. Anyway, never mind.
I know, I
They're
know,
there,
yeah, I
they're
know.
there,
It's
but
like,
they're there. We're not saying they're not
yeah,
there, they're there for the sayings like that, yeah.
yeah.
And you don't fully know. All you know is, I think, the fact that you have to make money, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
primary way to give back.
Yeah.
Not often that you will give back in other ways or in just in these conversations in deepening
Mm.
your relationship unless you start to value that, which
Yeah.
sort of did. We could go
I
all
tell you.
over the show, but I also
uh,
want to firstly
yeah.
touch on one point. I know you sort of mentioned how you would have handled things slightly differently. If there was 1 to 3 key pieces of advice you would give your younger self or
Mhm.
yourself before you became aware of the different way to see your experiences and to interact with people, perhaps
Yeah.
as a starting point for, say, someone who isn't there yet, who still feels
Yeah.
isolated, lonely, or ashamed when they feel like they have to admit they're not doing okay, or they feel like they've failed when
Yeah.
they're at this point, or they feel great
Yeah.
and they want to stay there. That's
Yeah.
also important too. We don't always have to be the bottom. Best times probably while you feel great. Just keep
Mm.
riding the wave.
Exactly. How do you maintain that? This good. So you're giving advice to myself
Wait,
when I first came to Australia, or just in general, my younger self?
let's go with Australia because I feel like that was a big transition and that forced you
Yeah.
to sit by yourself pretty much.
Mm. Yeah. I think first things first, gosh, so many things, but yeah, it's good to distill it down to maybe three.
Yeah.
First one, I think, would be you're not alone in this. You really are not. Like for every human experience, as simple as it may sound, someone else has gone through this before. A lot of people are probably going through it, and people around you probably think aren't going through it are either going through it right now or have gone through it or are yet to experience it. So that sort of isolation, loneliness, I'm alone, there are no other Zambians. I didn't need other Zambians there. I need other people who also were isolated, people who've been through that, to then tell if I'd reached out to them. So by knowing that you're not alone, it then makes you have a better perspective. It's like, okay, who else might it be? When you think you're alone and in that space, you really do think it's just you, and no one else can understand it or phantom it. No, people can. It's just you being scared to really open up to new people. So the first advice would be you're not alone in that broad concept. Second is really, I wish I'd learned to be more vulnerable. By that, I mean, it's quite a big statement. It's quite a vague statement, sorry, but means being able to talk to people authentically about what I was going through. Like the way my brother and I spoke when I first got my heart broken, or even the way I speak to my mom now, authentically tell them. Even if you ask me, how's your day? If you had called me up last week or the week before, man, it was a stressful week. Whenever the blood moon week was, we had lots of presentations. I was like, I was just like, man, I was just like, the energies were just, I was feeling tired, stressed. I wasn't sleeping properly. And then now if you had asked me, anyone, even a stranger asked me, I'll say, you know what? It's been a bit of a meh week. I've been feeling really tired, very stressed by work. And that in itself, someone else can say, oh, okay, you know, how can I help? In fact, that's the question other people should learn to ask, not even ask you more, like, how can I help you? But ultimately, I'm now able to live in that. I don't have to tell people I'm great all the time. If I'm good, I'll let you know I'm good. And I qualify it by why I'm feeling good. I don't want people to just think, oh, it's good because, oh, he's got a secure job, he's got money. Hey, those things make you feel comfortable and they negate some other stresses, but they're not the only thing. But definitely being learned to be more vulnerable and knowing that people won't laugh at you if you open up about how sad you are, or if you're feeling lonely, because that makes sense. You've come from another country, they've got culture shock. We even went to lectures where they said, hey, listen, you're going to get culture shock. I remember I was there in a lecture in Australia, like, what are you talking about? I've watched DSTV, I've been to America, I've been to Paris, I've been to London. I know culture, I'm a cultured man. I thought I was actually above it, believe it or not. And then a few weeks afterwards, because she gives this slope, like there's this graph they show for news culture shock when you come to Australia or any country, is you get first elated because new place, exciting, new friends, blah, blah, blah. Then afterwards you dip into a depression because then you're really alone, different people, even the racism, you even realize you're black. I never knew I was black until I came to Australia, because we're majorities. No one says you're black, you're Zambian, you're Bemba. In fact, no one has to think about that. When I came to Australia, you definitely realize you're black. You're a minority group. The balls have switched. And then third and last one would be, I think, I say it now a lot to people, but back then, I don't know if I understood if I told myself it, but you're enough. Everything you're doing, you're enough. Even if other people don't show you that. So even if your parents want you to have done more, no, you've done enough. You're enough in of yourself. You, the way you are, before achievements or after achievements, are enough. And that one's a lot harder for people to grasp. And I think even my old self be like, I'm enough. What are you talking about, man? I'm 19, not even enough. I've got things to do. I need to hit this by this mark. But it's something which I definitely tell people now. And it always gets people back because they're just like, are you sure? Even after they tell me the messy stories, I'm like, yeah, you're enough. You're you. There's some things we can work on, yes, but you're you. Let's celebrate that. And you're so resilient. I was psychiatry is funny because you have to teach people the resilience points as well as the deficits, but you have to try and balance it. You can't always just list the negatives. Otherwise, why would they, you feel like, oh, even the psychiatrist thinks I'm shit, So you kind of really have to work with them and say, hey, you got this far. You haven't killed yourself. You're trying to get help. You've got people who care about you so much that are willing to get you in front of me. You know what I mean? That means you've done good by them. Some way or another, you haven't really burnt those bridges. And it's true. People are not going to help out someone they don't like. You know what I mean? So even family sometimes will leave you alone if you burn them out too much. So there's a lot of things which the top three I'd love to tell my younger self. And looking back, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I know it now. And I think it's good that younger people, when I meet them, I tell them. And they still try and push back. I'm like, no, I push back. Like, no, you're enough. Oh, I haven't achieved, I haven't gone to med school. Like, I'm just like, no, you don't need to go to med school. Do what you like. What you like doing. Yeah, it's good to also have a plan and also make sure there's a job at the end of it. Yeah, of course, we're all scared about getting a job. But there's no point in you stressing yourself out, doing something you hate so you don't get anywhere, and just be depressed and doing things because other people, it will make them happy. But are you happy? You know what I mean? Like, and that's at the end of the day, you should put yourself number one. You should need to bring back the narcissism. You have to bring that inner child back. Like, I love, it's because kids always think about themselves because that's what the world is, just themselves. And sometimes you have to bring people back and say, you almost want that same level of love for yourself. Like, hey, man, this is your life. Shy, that's your life, man. Whatever you're doing in Manchester, that's your life. You do it. Let's support you, live it as healthily as whatever goals you can, we'll take it up. But because it's your life, you're driving it. Even it's my life. So if I do something great here, good. If I want to do it, if I achieve something great, that's good. If you big me up, that's all right. but am I happy just living day to day without those extra things happening? You know, and that's something which I always joke, like we always joke white people do this or black people do that. I think Australia, obviously the majority of the population is white, and it's a very, very wealthy country. So you can see as a whole, the way white people think about their problems here, even the ones who are considered like a broke or suffering, they're not talking about, oh, my tribe or because you're lousy. It's like, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like the guy might be thinking the same, we have the same thought process. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing bad about that per se, but there's a level of comfort people have here that even I can get like white male clients who are just the most low-key, egotistical guy like other African men, and they'll still say, no, I messed up, and they can own to it in comfort that the system will help protect them because the system's built for them. Where back at home in Zambia, where people even the system's built for us, will you open up and say, I mean, Zambia is also got a long way to go with mental health, but it's interesting. I always say the correlation is that there's more education they have here around mental health or just physical health. So a lot of people know that the body is a temple. We say these quasi things, they sound like pseudoscience, but it's true. Your way physical health affects your mental health and your mental health affects your physical. I always, because I guess a mental health, I'm always like, if your mind ain't right, you won't be right regardless. You know, you can exercise and run all you want, but what you end up having is those anxious people who are always running because they're anxious. So they'll be very fit, but it doesn't settle their anxiety, the underlying anxiety. You know, that's why whenever I meet like those high performance people, sometimes I'm like, I always have to screen for anxiety, but it doesn't come across quite often. They're eating right, they go to the gym, they did a half marathon, they're doing this. Like, okay, fair enough. So, you know, let's tease it out. What are you running from, man? You know what I mean? You know, it's like and it's interesting. I mean, once again, I'm also lucky because when people come see me, there must be a problem. No one's in front of me without there being a problem. Yeah. So those are the three things I would say before I go on a tangent to the younger self.
Powerful.
Thank you for listening to Men Talk Ubuntu podcast and being a valued member of our community. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube, Instagram, and other social media now for access to our latest updates. DM us and let us know what your mental health is on a scale of 1 to 5. Thank you.
I love that. Oof. I'm trying to digest all of them, and everything you sort of say, I want to build on. All right, I'll stick with one thing.
There'll be many times to chat in the future. Otherwise, we will talk for a mental. This topic. Don't get me started on this topic.
There was so many. I was trying to make quick notes, but one really powerful image that you conjured in my mind was how, no matter where you are, what you're doing, you are driving it. And that made me think of you're literally in the driver's seat of your car or bus, however you want to put it. And there'll be other people in there, but you're the one driving and taking this somewhere. And hopefully you're going to live a very full and long life. So that's a very long drive. And you then have to consider what kind of car you're in, which might be everything else going. And who's in there? Like, you know.
The baggage.
I don't want any backseat drivers. Well, you could have done better. But this idea that, yes, if you had more money and you're in a very luxurious car, it's going to be a nicer ride. It's going to be more comfortable.
Yes.
But if the people in the car are negative, are putting you down, making you feel bad all the way through, they're just saying rubbish.
Yes.
It's a long ride. No matter how comfortable you are, you want to get out.
Exactly. Oh my goodness.
You know,
and if your car goes, if the tire goes flat, will they help you fix? Because every car's tire at some point.
Who helped you change the spare tire? Who's gonna help you change your tire?
I love I use the car analogy because we use it a lot in science, in therapy, and just general as an analogy for many things. But the car thing is so. It's like even when you have dreams and you're out of control, the many people come to me and like, if you sometimes just says for dreams because I like doing that as well. But people, when you have those anxiety dreams, usually it's something you can't control. So people are like, oh man, I was trying to make money, but I couldn't make money. I was trying to drive the car, but I couldn't get into the driver's seat. The car was driving itself and it was going to crash. And I was trying to get into the driver's seat, but I couldn't. So people, when you break that down, it's just this lack of control. But I like the analogy, like it depends on the car, the people in it, the baggage, and also when the car needs maintenance. That's what happened, remember? And some of these roads will be rocky. Not everyone's driving on these nice highways, you know, Autobahn situation. Some people are driving on those like Chipata roads, you know?
Potholes, people. Potholes.
Yeah.
There's potholes.
You got a Maybach, that's not going to help you there. and that's where you need a different car. And then like when to use a different car, when to maintain your car, who's checking the oil, are these people who in the car with you or yourself able to know that I should put care and prioritize the car, because this is the one making the journey with me. So if you don't check the oil, unchecking the things, checking the radiators, hey man, this car, when it breaks down, it's gonna be a drama. But you have to put in effort and pay. So the car analogy, it's a gift that keeps on giving. I use it for so many different things, from medication to crisis, mental health issues. But it's, sorry, I cut you off. But
No, you jumped right in. That's perfect.
It's
I
so good,
think I love that, like, because the way you've broken it down even further. Oh,
don't get me started.
Doesn't matter what kind of car you are, what road, like these are our pathologies or our experiences. They're all absolutely true, absolutely genuine. The key message is, firstly, you're more complex than a car. And a car needs maintenance and care. And there's a manual for a car, but that also doesn't tell you anything and everything.
Yes, indeed.
So you might have what guides you. So at the very least, you need time to repair, to look after yourself. Sometimes that's just, I just need a quick top up. Hey, I just need a quick oil top up, or I need to add some water. Sometimes it's, I need a quick service.
Yes.
Other times, parts have to get changed. People have to get taken out. Upgrades have to be made.
Yep.
All sorts of things have to happen. We plan that for the car. We know to take it for the test to figure out what's wrong and what needs to be adjusted. We might make the car even prettier, build it up.
Yeah.
Body can update the paint. If you're not thinking about that for yourself, take the time to do that.
Yes. And I think the thing with lots of people, when I talk about analogies, I realize we don't do abstract thought as much in Africa. We do lots of stories and creative thinking, but even the car analogy, sometimes after I tell them that, they get it. Then it's like, so what am I supposed to do, man? What am I supposed to do? Because then they want pragmatical things, which is obviously why I think mental health as a whole is so tricky for Africans, because it's a bit abstract a concept. We're talking about what's up in here. It's not always you can see it physically. And like, oh, you're alcoholic, just stop drinking. It doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? It's not as simple as that, as a logic in that. But
I'd like to get into. Oh yeah, go.
I know.
No, please.
Oh yeah, no, I was just talking about the analogies with the car thing is good, because the pragmatic stuff, I even tell people, okay, let's talk about pragmatic things. I guess now I know the theories, I know what works, because I've treated so many thousands of patients at this point. So now I'm like, okay, how often do you see your GP? Because something I remember, I was listening to one of your podcasts. Now you've got me in. I'm listening to your podcast, seeing how you guys work, you and Ray, and the dynamics. And I think, I don't know which one I was listening to. Was it Denzel or Daniel? He was talking about the script you give to the GP when you're going there for mental health, because you guys are capped with like one problem per session or whatever. And I was saying
Denzel,
Denzel, exactly. And I was gonna say, like, it's sad, it's like that. Even here it does get a bit like that, but we have a bit more flexibility. But even then, I'm like, you should make sure if you've got a mental health issue, you should actually be booking in regular check-ins with your GP, which are going to be you even tell them that, hey, we're checking in, this checkup is for a mental health checkup, the actual specific mental health checkup. I don't know if that works the same in NHS, but here we have certain things where you can do a short booking or a long booking. And the long booking usually is, you can either try and do a whole bunch of small things in there, or you have one topic you want to cover. And for mental health, make that your one thing. Then for physical complaints, go another session, so that you're prioritizing that. And then you go check up with your GP once a month, even if you're well. Because people always want to go in crisis. But I'm like, you are not the best gauge of when you start suffering. So everyone's like, oh no, I know when I'm going downhill. But yeah, but you end up, you find yourself at rock bottom before you course correct it. Other people can actually see you crashing. So I'm always saying, like, how often do you see your GP? And that's a very good sign. How often do you see a doctor or professional for help? And like, oh no, I'm fit, man. I don't need things. Like, hey, can you see your cholesterol? You got X-ray vision. You're telling me your cholesterol is good? I'm very, I get in people's faces, because people, they'll fight back. That's a defense mechanism, because it's almost like I'm critiquing them, when really all I'm trying to say is that, hey, I think if you want the help and you really want us to go good with your mental health, let's see how often you're getting checked up anyway. How often are you doing the checkups? The tip of the car thing, bring the car analogy back in. It's like, oh, you drive a Maybach. Okay, that Maybach's expensive, better look after it, You got to check those. Maybe that needs a checkup twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. Because if you want to keep it well, you're going to change the tires. They're going into snow. You need snow tires, man. You can't go in the snow with those, those, even, what's the guys? Lewis Hamilton. Those guys change tires all the time,
Yeah.
depending on the surface. Similar concept. And because men like those analogies, cars, and men love very pragmatic looking things.
Yeah.
And then you get them onto it and they even tell them, okay, they start going to their GP. And then even the GP will get interested in their story because your GP becomes the center who holds all your information when he makes the referrals to psychologists, psychiatrists. So if your hub knows more about you and you're a very dense, complex person, I always tell Black guys this because everyone wants us to be these simple, very machismo leaders, Shaka Zulu-esque types. You know, it's like really full on. Like, there's no room for this vulnerable Black guy who might have dyed hair. It's like we don't give people like, yet white people who give them a chance to be anything. White guys can be geeky white guy, nerd, psychopath, bikey, business CEO, book owner, foundational. You know, we can give them so many different stereotypes for white people or white men experiences, but for Black men, it's zoop. It narrows down. There's the thug, there's the rapper, there's the Don Juan, there's the CEO. But what you see there is like people performing at a high level. It's sort of this theme of they're performing high at what they do. So if you're a criminal, you better be a good criminal, man. I don't want to just be out here in the ends and become like an episode of that. What was that series? That guy was asked, do you guys have the adulthood? I know the guy's now been
Bashi. No Clark. Yeah, Kidulthood and
yeah, so obviously he's a bad dude there. Okay, allegedly. Yeah. Anyway, I don't say anything for him. But
we separate the work from the worker, right?
Yeah. So the work itself is like, it's good because it does address those very problematic things we go through, you know. And I think it does a good show of showing us the mirror of ourselves because no one's pure. And that's the problem with these experiences around mental health is that people think mental health is my personality and my persona. They're interlinked, but they're separate entities. You being this courageous, arrogant guy is not your mental health. That's your personality. That's been crafted by maybe your father, perfectionism, constant critique, you know, and that the thing where like, you know, if someone, think of it, I don't know how you were in high school, but our high school, because it's Mpelembe, so, you know, we used to be part of the A class. So A class was like the top people stay in the A class. Even the grading. And this was a school where people were above the national average as a baseline. So the dumbest person had exceeded the national average, but it would be like A class is A class, B class is next, C, then D. So if you're in the A class, academically you're gifted. But we were so petty with each other that if someone says that they're reading like, oh, Chicago, Illinois, Illinois, you know, it's like you're correcting people of things that are so meaningless. You know what I mean? Like someone, yeah, and it's like that sort of thing presents different personality, which will affect your mental health later on in crises, usually, you know? Anyways, what I was trying to get back to is that whole pragmatic thing and showing them it's simple steps like how much do you check in on yourself anyway? So you're making them accountable. Then even ask the next step, ask them, who are your social supports? You know, people tell me, oh, you're my psychiatrist. I'm like, listen, you come see me, it takes a couple of weeks. You can't see me every week. Who's there at home with you? Who is there? Who's your friend? Who are real supports in your life? And it's a good, I like those simple discussions because it makes people think, who could I tell I'm depressed and I've got a cannabis problem? Who would I share that to? Is it Shy? Is it Ray? I wouldn't tell my mom that. Can I tell my girl? Okay, I'll tell my side chick that. At least she listens. She smokes too. You know, you know, but who are your people? So I do tell people like, who's your social support? And if you don't have one, or some people come and they're like, oh no, whatever. I'm like, all right, let's build it up. Let's build up your social support. And it's funny because then they're waiting for you to say, are you going to give me a pill or not? What's the cure? I'm like, that already is the beginning. And you have to really reset it and start again. Like, oh no, let's check in. Let's build up the foundation, you know? And it's fun. Like I said, because the Sherlock Holmes, I might see it clearly, but getting someone on board, it's not a matter of me telling them. It's a matter of motivating them in themselves to see the deficits and push through that. So it's quite a lot, man.
Yeah, nah, it is. It is. This is perfect. Like that's exactly, I was going to transition a bit more into, shall we perhaps delve into some of the practical conversations or resources or information you give people, and you've started doing that already, which is perfect. The Sherlock Holmes bit comes back as well, especially if you watch the series or anything like that.
Oh yeah,
you've now just said like, for anyone listening, it's like he tells you what he gives you his observation. Like, oh, you're here because you've been doing this, and you're like, how?
Yes.
and then he starts to break down what's helped him reach that conclusion. And like you say, you can tell someone the observation. It might, no, they don't buy into it. But getting them to analyze what's going on with themselves, and not just even this whole I'm a functioning alcoholic. It's like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Can we address the alcoholism? Like,
even the fact that you're going to put it in a mantle that I'm a functional alcoholic, not like
I
this
got
other alcoholic.
this.
I'm like,
But
the fact that you're actually putting yourself above other alcoholics in some shape or form itself is problematic.
it's extremely problematic, like, because even in some of these environments, like you were pointing out with high school, where everyone around you is functioning to this high level, I still believe, because we all want that winner's circle, we all want this peer group that lift us higher, and we know, you take what's the sports thing, Wayne Brady, a LeBron James, a Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant. If you have a winning team, Mayweather, when you've got the winning team around you or behind you. I mean, UK was that, like, is it Chris Eubank Jr.? It's got like what, Roy Jones Jr. on his corner now. Like, when you've got the winning team around you, they're going to essentially set the bar, even though like the school's above the national average. They will set the bar high or higher. And that's just the norm. Like in Manchester, of course, Manchester United, that's a big thing with the culture, and everyone like, this is the way we are. Yeah. And I know they're changing and thinking about things changing. Like, there's been some great interviews. There's a podcast called the High Performance Podcast, and they've had a few players from there, but a lot of high perform and coaches or managers and various people. And this is the insight you get to what it takes to be that successful or to push. And going back to the very reason, like, you're being given the opportunity to study in Australia. It's because some people, I guess, if you're in the UK, you don't always think about that. Or maybe if you're from Australia, you don't think about that because you'll grow up here, you'll go to uni here, you'll get your work here. You don't always, some people do, but you don't think about finishing college. A lot of people won't be thinking about, I'll finish college and I'll go and study over there in order to better my prospects or just get more experience with life. Like, they'll do a travel year, but it's very different when you're planning to study, and that becomes a huge part of your life. Like, say you're now an Australian citizen. That no wonder it presents all sorts of things. Like, so that's what I mean. We go into that again. Like, there's so much we can unpack. It's amazing. But this is why it's so important, I guess, for people to see the conversations and listen in, because especially as men, we want, give me the solution, give me the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5.
Show me the formula. I've read all the books, Trump books. I've read all this, like all the books black guys are always reading. They always have the same thing. There's Jordan Peterson. Every black guy's got a list of things like The Art of Thinking Big or whatever, the Pillars of Success. There's so many books that's similar. They all read the same.
Relentless.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the books are good, but sometimes I feel we miss the message, because some people, if you look at all those high performance people from Tiger Woods and other people on these teams, they actually all focus on not just the deficits, but also not just the pros, but also the deficits of the players they have. So you're going to say something here that Eureka moment.
You sparked me again. So it was the Lewis Hamilton example you gave. Let's say black men, we've got this, with this high performing, boom, 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 we're doing our laps. I just want quick pit stop, change my tires, top me up, let me know what's up, off I go. We don't want to stop and talk to the team who's doing the analytics, who's monitoring everything. We need them in our ear, telling us what's going on with the car. As much as we're doing what we're doing, there's a whole team that you need that's working on your analytics. You need that person who will ask you, hey, how you doing, bro? I'm good. All right, so how far are you with that work project? Where are you with your business plan again? Is everything cool with your boss now? I know you were stressed last week. All right. You need the team that helps you do the analytics, because for you, it's often the emotions. When you feel okay, everything must be fine. When you get that anxiety, the panic attacks, all those things start to manifest, then you're like, I need to do something. When you're like, oh, confused, I don't know what's going on, my mind's all foggy, I can't sleep, what's going on here? Then you need help. when you're over that, or when you reach a point, you know what, forget it, neck a few things, I'm gonna just blow out.
Yep.
You're then numbing the pain, all sorts, like, but you need the people who will call you and say, what's going on?
Exactly. What's really going on? You know?
Yeah.
And then those are people who are very, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that was it. Just how you
Yeah,
doing, you know?
I was gonna say, like, yeah, it's checking in, and like it's let's go back to Lewis Hamilton thing. I think it's good even for him when you're peak performance, you just tunnel vision. So even for him, someone has to tell him, hey man, you didn't do well on the last lap, you need to cut the next corner at this. They sort of guide him. Even though he's been on these tracks, how many times has he been on these tracks? You know, he's been to Monaco, how many times? He's driven these tracks more times than he can count himself. But the team will know that depending on the day, what he's going through, whether they can hack or not. Even the time he had I think it was sort of worried about COVID and stuff, feeling a bit unwell. He was fit enough to race, but it was like, nah, man, I need to take a break off myself. The team, even though they lose millions of dollars, this guy's not touching down. Hey, listen, this guy, even though it's the brand, of course, is the money maker, they have to respect that and make him feel comfortable to tell his team, hey, I don't feel like racing, and support him. If he wants to go on this Black Lives Matter thing, hey, I'm sure the mean guys, the CEO there is like, hey, I don't really know about the Black Lives Matter, but hey, this guy cares about it. Let him have his piece. If he wants to go on his forum and use it to talk about his platform, because Lewis Hamilton was very vocal during Black Lives Matter, you know? And it's like, he didn't have to be. Many of these high peak guys can just shut up and stick by and you just put a black square on your Instagram, whatever you wanted to do that was tokenistic. He was like, nah, you need to talk about this more. We need to be seeing more diversity in F1. How come we don't have enough F1 black people, you know? And it's something I was thinking about with black men. A lot of studies I look into were doing worse over time than other races. So let's say if you look at think generally. So I always say we think generally. Black women are doing better than black men, I think, generally moving forward. So if you look at sports, the Williams sisters, even Osaka, we haven't had a black anything in tennis. That's just tennis. But maybe tennis is too much. So obviously we've got basketball, that's our thing. So feel like, look at us, we're doing basketball. But I'm like, spread the net far wide. More black women, we've got more Issa Rays than we have there. Who's the black guy in Atlanta? Some Tyler Perry. So Tyler Perry is a big deal, but he comes to be the exception for the rule. The more norm is seeing black women getting those media. We're seeing more black women in business. More black women are finishing university. More black women are owning houses first. Like I've met a 20s, there's so many mid-20s women in Sydney, black women who own houses now. I'm like, they're like, oh, Xavier, you obviously must have a house. And I'm like, yeah, house.
Like a house? The way my bank account's set up.
Exactly. I have my chickens and my savings account. You know, and it's like, it actually says a lot about you. And it did take me a while. I see black women actually winning at that. Even the way they look after mental health, black women even saying, hey, I know a good therapist I went to. Can you imagine? Very few black men who turn out black man, hey, I know a good therapist. Just for admitting to that is already risky. Let alone saying, hey, I think you do really well if you see my therapist. Should book in through your GP, get a referral. We don't talk like that. But women, it's very natural. I mean, I'll just keep it to black people, black experiences. But for us, for black women, it's natural. And for black men, I've seen where we're crumbling. So even the ones I see where they're doing black excellence, the number of professionals I see generally who are living very messy personal lives, who are now being found out, you know, they're cheating, they've got addiction problems, marriages are dissolving, they do poorly. Men do poorly as a whole when they're single, and black men worse so. That's why men always have, black men, I always say it's a joke, but black men being single, we don't know how to be single, like purely single. Guy would be like, have maybe 5 different girls in Birmingham, 1 in London, and Manny, I've got 2 on opposite sides of the town so I can keep the distance. I'm like, I'm not on any socials. I love guys who always tell me that I'm not on any socials. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I wonder why, but you know, and then even just being single on your own. So even with my friends, when I left a long-term relationship some years, like 2 years ago, I said, you know what, let me finish my training and focus on me. I remember it was so weird because a couple of my friends would be like, "Are you sure? Like, do you have a girlfriend? Like, even a side chick or something?" I was like, they find it so hard that I'm rolling on my own to a point that becomes a point of contention when we're talking. I was saying, "Nah, I'm at home. Sometimes I have difficult nights. I'm there at home. I do feel lonely sometimes. I'm there in my house. And I'm like, do I want someone here? But I've had someone there and it still didn't work out. So it's like the issues I need to work on for me. And I realize I'm not the easiest guy to live with or date. And, you know, as a guy, it's good to know that. It's good to know you're not easy. Even though you might put this facade, I'm like, oh, happy-go-lucky, extroverted Xavier. I realize I'm very difficult to live with because I think I'm used to having things my way. It's probably medicine. You're so used to having it your way at hospital. Then you come home, then you're challenged by someone. And then and so in challenge, this person has just said their own piece, but me, because it goes against what I want to do, I'm now touched. It's an ego thing. So then I realized, you know what, I had to work on that. But then during that space, guys be like, no, man, you can't just be out here single, like by yourself. You don't have like a wife, you got someone pregnant, a baby mama, because a lot of guys have got interesting dynamics. I don't say messy, but a lot of people have just got very tricky dynamics with women, black men, you know, with their relationship with women is just tricky at best for a lot of them, you know, to the point that even if the relationship is healthy and doing well, a lot of the guys don't know what they'll do without that partner. They don't know if their partner died today, this guy would be in trouble. And that's not the sign of and sure, you can have a relationship where if she's there, it's good, but you have to think about when they're not there.
Yeah.
Why is it that you're only existing well because they're there? You know, and that makes it's a fine line between we are symbiotic and we share each other to have so many deficits that I only work well with this partner. You know, that's what I always tell people. Like we have deficits, and it's okay to admit that. Women will tell you more openly anyway. If you ask a black woman, or any woman actually, even white women, women will tell you, oh no, I'm this or this. Sometimes I get moody this time of the month. Women give you so much data to work with. Us even get overwhelmed. They're like,
you might even get annoyed with all that.
Yeah. Yet, if you reverse the roles, we give them nothing. It's like, are you okay? Yeah, of course I'm fine. Have you not seen I bought the new AMG? I'm like, well, you also couldn't afford brunch last weekend, so what's up with that? You know, it's like they hit you with those. Anyway, yeah, so I think I lost my trail of thought with that, but
keep going.
So I was just talking about being alone and just knowing yourself. That's the one I found as the thing, knowing who you are, both the good and bad. So it's okay that you like striving for goals, you want to make money so you can look after your family, because some people grew up in homes where food was so scarce, they never want their children to experience that scarcity ever, you know? And I get that, amen. Who am I to tell you? You went through that where times mom would, having there's no meat, there wasn't any meat at the shops, but really it was we couldn't afford meat. So now we become vegetarians by default. You know what I mean? And that sits funny with kids, and kids are always trying to be better than their parents. But that drive can also get twisted where you course correct too much. You're like, I never want to be broke, so I have to get a good job. I have to exceed at this. And if you don't, like I've had friends who call me up, they cry over failing to finish their CFA examinations or CIMA or these MBA. They fail one assessment. Guy calls me out in tears. I'm like, it's just an exam, man. But dude, this thing means everything. Like, but dude, you can already feed your family now. It's just delayed your plan to get this promotion based on this master's. Yeah, but you're already enough now. You know, I always go back to that. You know, I keep coming back to that. You're already enough now. But he's like, just in case, blah, blah, blah. Then the question I shouldn't ask, because some people, they say that just, you know, and like, Xavier, why are you being so hard? This guy is trying to make sure he's got a comfortable buffer. Then I'm saying, okay, let's run with that. Because, you know, I like, you know, obviously when a psych person tells you that, okay, people that you should get scared. And I say, all right, what's your will? Do you have a will in place? Oh, no, because if you really care about your family and what's going to happen to them, you better have that sorted. Because just leaving them with bills and debts. Have you got some income protection in case something happens to you? What healthcare plan are you and your children under? If you're really telling me that you're thinking if it's a money thing, those things don't cost you money too much anyway. You know, some of them are even part of plans, but you have to set them up. So I'm saying, if you're really telling me about your family and you're trying to provide for them, you might have to start the baby steps before you reach, I've got 6 figures and now I can provide for my family. You know? So that's the part where you flip it on them, and people then, they don't like it because invariably you sort of hit them with some common sense logic and it makes sense. And then they feel defeated. It's like, what you're saying is these goals are pointless. I'm saying, no, they're not pointless. I think you're just putting more priority on them than other things that probably would be a good foundation for this amazing career thing when you get to. And it might make you sleep easier. If you've got a will, like ever since I got myself life insurance and sorted out my will, I slept easy because I knew that if I die, as sad as that thought may be, if I die now, no one's getting any debts, and maybe there'll be something given to my siblings, something from mom. I can sleep easy that if I die, people will be okay, you know? And that means I don't have to work for this extra money. It's not I can comfortably work towards my goal of being more comfortable, whether it's setting up a private practice or doing whatever I'm going to do in the future. It sits easy with me. I go to bed thinking, even though it's so weird setting up life insurance, so weird, man. They ask you these questions. What's your health? You know, have you had kids? Do you have blah, blah, blah? It's like, do you have STIs? I'm like, whoa, what's my business? You know, they ask you a full slew of questions, then they hit you with the tab and you're like, can we pay this every month? Yeah, that's for peace of mind. You know, it's really not that much from what you get from it, you know, but anyway, so that's what I was trying to say. Like, part of it is like, we're so defensive that we deflect, but really, if you sat down and made the plan, something that you can actually do and make more comfortable and sleep better.
It's important. Like when you say peace of mind, it's almost, I don't want to say an innocuous statement. Like it's something we could all easily overlook. But if we truly think about whether we have peace of mind, like nothing's eating you, like it's how many
Yeah.
people can truly say they have peace of, like a baby has peace of mind pretty much, not a
Yeah.
care in the world.
Oh, yes. Oh, my
Kids
goodness.
tend to have
Yeah.
peace of mind depending on what age they are because they will share everything that they're feeling, experiencing, going through. So they go to sleep like, whew, like they nothing's on me. Like, whew.
Exactly. So glad Dad told me why the sky was blue, man. I was
Yeah,
curious about that.
And I think this other point about it really got me thinking, enjoying your own company.
Mm,
Genuine, don't just like, oh, I'm not on social, I chill at home, I watch movies, whatever. Like genuinely enjoying your own company and just getting to know who you are, you like what you like to do, how you like to move. A lot of people I don't think do that. Like I've
no,
more recently or in recent years started doing more outdoorsy, like running, climbing,
good. I like the
these
hikes you guys do, by the way.
activities. Oh, it's amazing, bro.
So
Like
cool.
it's fun. So yeah, hopefully
We need
COVID
more of
paves
those.
the
More
way.
black guys need to get together. Let's go hike instead of just drinks in pubs. We can still do
This
that, but
this is it because you're adding, you're only adding to your life because this goes
yes.
back to there's the culture of maybe you have to enjoy, you have to drink, and that's your way. But again, if we're thinking long term, yes, have fun, enjoy. But if we're thinking long term, how you want to leave your family and the people you love, the kind of
Mhm.
situation, and just thinking in general about your body, back to the car analogy, it's
Yeah.
true. Like what you put in is going to have an effect on what happens later. I know I can't remember where I heard it now. Like there's Babe Ruth,
Oh yeah,
bad
baseball.
bad
Yeah.
man, yeah, in the U.S. And I think he was asked in later life, like, what maybe something along the lines of what's your one regret? And I think he just said, I wish I'd treated my body as well as it treated me.
Oh yeah, he was
Basically,
bad to his body, that dude.
a lot of hot dogs and beer.
Yeah.
But because this is where you also imagine if he'd looked after himself, how much longer he'd be around. Like we got
Yes.
someone like Kenneth Kaunda, with
I
Zambia, our
know,
very first
seriously.
president.
Still
He's still
alive.
out here rocking and being
Like,
healthy. And I was gonna, because I didn't know whether I wanted to ask you if addictions are genetic
mm,
or whether I wanted to get into this idea of with Zambia it being
mm,
independent only 50 odd years ago,
yeah.
56 coming up, I think,
Eesh, we should know
something
this,
like
man.
that. Yeah. I'm not a mathematician.
1964. What is that? I do maths in this, man. I don't know. We should know this.
Oh man.
I know, seriously, we should be ashamed of
Okay,
ourselves.
I think it's coming up. I'm gonna throw it out. I think it's coming up 57. Woo.
Yeah, yeah, 57, you're right.
Oh Lord,
Oh,
thank God.
oh goodness. We're going to revoke our Zambian passports, man. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we were slipping on that.
Oh man.
Oh,
Woo.
now you
Started
have to edit
sweating.
that bit out, man. Woo.
But so I was either going to lean towards is addiction genetic,
Mm-hmm.
and to that could be applied in any context,
Of
or
course.
whether we go into a Zambian context, and I think something we don't often really think about with the idea of colonialism and the narrative a lot of people then know about slavery and what came before, because
Yeah.
while that's what's pushed, there is a
Mm-hmm.
very rich and goes back history for Africa in general
Yeah.
and everywhere as a whole, but that is often overlooked for what is pushed, which is for 400 years. And okay, I think even the British colonial rule was,
Mm.
I can't quite remember, but it was a while. I was quite
It was a
surprised.
long minute.
I
Wasn't it like they
thought,
came in the
yeah,
late 1800s? That's when they
yeah,
rocked up. God, we should know
industrial
this.
revolution times. Yeah, but I was quite surprised because
Mm.
when I was growing up and you think about it, like, oh, we got independent in 64, I don't know, probably here 10, 20 years or something, you don't deep it too much. Like, all right, went back, like,
Yeah, it went
really?
back.
And yeah, in that time, as you tend to know with things like colonialism, you don't uphold the pre-existing culture. You
Mm.
don't keep people proud of who they are, because that
Mm.
doesn't work. Like, you can't have a proud slave, right? Or
No, no, they brought
you
in
can't
Jesus,
keep
man. They
someone
brought
down.
religion to us.
Oh, hey.
Hey, hey.
No, no, no. I'm like, oh, we opened that one. We're gonna be at
Yeah,
this a while.
yeah.
But
So I guess was the second question about how that pre-colonial phase and stuff, how it affects addictions in Zambia. Where you gonna go? I know the first question
yeah,
was
no,
about
this
addictions
was
and
it.
genetic
Like,
force.
I feel like maybe both of those are perhaps even a bit too deep. We might have to save them for a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll we'll go a bit more straightforward
Okay.
with, yeah, we'll go with maybe two more aspects of this, and then we'll start
Sure,
getting
man.
towards the sum up. So, firstly, is there a secret to managing addiction?
Mm. Is there a secret to managing addiction? Secret? No. I think it's very there, there are many evidence-based facts and ways to do it. I think our knowledge of addiction is poor. So when it says there's a secret, I think in people's mind, when I hear that, what I hear is, what's the quickest way to get back to being normal?
Yeah.
And that's what people come to ask me, like, hey, I've been drinking, who knows when it started, I want to stop today. And then kind of like, well, we can't really overlook the past. I need to dig in and see where it started. So I think there is ways to manage. I think there are ways to look at addiction. We need to change the way we look at addiction, first of all. Look at it as a disease, mental illness. Look at it as actually a sort of a condition, as sort of attuned to like diabetes. But I think when we say addictions, we tend to think that the onus is purely just on that person alone. This person injects the drugs into themselves. This person puts the alcohol into their mouth. No one's there putting an alcohol bottle down your throat. You know what I mean? So in our minds, we're like, it's almost like a lack of willpower or discipline, laziness, easy way out. So that mindset already sets people up to fail, because that's how we think addictions works. When really I tell people addictions is usually a result of usually complex traumas or past issues that have not been resolved and have now come out as maladaptive forms through alcohol or drugs. Okay. So a lot of people, when they come talk to me, the first part of the history I always ask them is, when did you first taste alcohol or the drug, whatever the thing in question? When was the first time you remember? And the first time was never really a problematic thing. No one just drank and became alcoholic the first day. Some people was like, well, I had a sip of my dad's beer at 14 or 15, or my dad and I used to drink at 14, 15. So one guy told me like him and his dad used to drink alcohol after mowing the lawn. I'm like, oh, at 14, damn, I don't think my dad was, but then that shows a different situation. So it was normalized quite early on. Or some people came from very traumatic places where when you get older, the only way is to numb pain, because when you're younger, you go to your parents or your friends, and the system at large keeps you in check. When you become an adult, past 18 or you leave high school, you are who keeps you in check. And if you follow those rules, the law will get you, or institutions will get you, whatever it would be, right? So the problem is when you're checking yourself, I think, and you've got unresolved issues, it's easy to turn to substance use, drugs or any kind. Especially alcohol. Alcohol is still the leading one that causes the most problems. Everyone's like, oh, heroin, meth, speed. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Those things still obviously cause problems. But alcohol, our legal drug, is still the number one, because we've normalized using it for celebrations, for pain, loss. You can use alcohol for any context. I got divorced, alcohol. I got married, alcohol. I had a kid, alcohol. A kid who had a miscarriage, alcohol. You can use it for literally any excuse. The society will accept anything you give it. And once you put that there, people then sneak in the trauma underneath that and starts driving it. So first we go out there, we like going out for parties. So there's that guy who goes out parties too much, and everyone knows when he goes too hard, too fast. But it's uni. Then fast forward where we catch up again now, we're trying to get mid-20s, we'll got those jobs, we're trying to rise up. And then the person still, when you meet him, like, hey man, I guess still going a bit hard, but no one's saying anything. No one's addressing it until the point it becomes a problem. It's like, oh, that guy lost his job. We abandon those people generally, So if it's someone, we get taught, we call this, I'm going to say black excellence again, because I just love hating on it. But it's that when you get on that road, if someone's not fitting into your high elite crew, you cut them off. If someone's not, and people like saying like, oh, if it's not serving you, cut it off, which is true, but we also use it to cut off people who might need our help. Even people who are friends or relatives, but this person drinks too much, nah, cut him off. He's ruining my image of who I am. He's ruining my birds of a feather flock together. I'm rolling with high quality caliber people. Not this alcoholic guy, he can go. So already we isolate them even further. So they've got no one to turn to. So when you say like, how can we, how do you manage addictions already said? How do you manage? Yeah. I think it's that the question should be more, how can we identify addiction? What drives addiction? What are the treatments to get over addictions? What can the community at large, or what can I do if I know someone has an addiction problem? If I have a close friend, all of us have got close friends with addiction problem. No one can lie to me. Especially if you came from Zambia, you know someone who's got a drinking problem. Let's not even lie to each other. How many of our friends died from drink driving back home? Even I know you should know a few people. You know, it's like, you can't lie to me and tell me you've lived your whole life from Zambia and alcohol and drink driving wasn't part of, either you did it or friends did it or people died by it. People died from liver failure back at home from drinking. And it's funny because they'll be in their 20s or 30s and say like, well, that guy died. And once again, I ask when a young person dies, how did he die? Oh no, his liver died on him. It's like, how does your liver, you know, I do medicine.
Liver just quit.
Exactly. And the liver is the most robust organ you have. You know what I mean? For the liver to stop working, you have to damage at least about 75% of it. That's a lot. You know, your brain, you damage it in a quarter, you're in trouble, you know. But your liver can take a beating. That's why alcoholism can take a while before it becomes a problem, because your liver can break down alcohol, can really take that beating. But then the question is like, why did this young guy in his 30s die from alcohol problems? From, you know, like, what was driving that? I don't know, he drank too much. And we move on. You don't sit back and ask, actually, that guy, you know, his father used to beat him really bad. You know, he used to took a beating with the belt buckle. His father gave his mom HIV, she died. Then his father subsequently died from that. Then he was raised by his uncle. And then the uncle was a drinker. Then the uncle used to make him do house chores because it's like, I'm looking after you. You know, your father, you know, they guilt trip you. And this guy comes out drinking alcohol as the only way to cope. That's what he had. And we never ask ourselves, hey, do we address domestic violence issues? Do we address child abuse generally? Do we recognize that some ways our parents treat us were not ideal? Through no fault of them. I always think parents are doing the best with what they have. They really are. And some don't have a lot. So they don't do poorly. They don't do well, but they're doing the best they can, you know? So sorry, so that's why I like the question, because I broke it out a bit more, because then we have to ask ourselves bigger questions. And do you know what addictions is? Do you know if you have it? Do you know if your friend has it? And if they do, what are you going to do about it? You know, and those are the questions I like asking people, because they're really sticky points. And all of us I know have experienced it. And we feel a bit ashamed to say that, oh, I have an uncle who's alcoholic. I have an auntie who drinks too much and she goes around town and is a bit like, you know, sexually promiscuous, whatever. You know, these things, they happen. But we're so ashamed. We want to hide it. And I'm like, that's not the way we're going to solve it. So we won't manage addictions that way. We're only going to manage it if we open Pandora's box and get it in the open. That's what addictions is. And it's really about showing everyone your best and worst sides. So when I meet patients in the family, they're like, oh, fix him. I'm like, oh, that's interesting you say fix him. You know, that's why talking to psychiatrists is annoying. We're just the worst.
We're just like, the worst.
Because people come to us and they ask us what they think is a simple question. Like, hey, my husband's alcoholic. You're the addictions doctor. Show us the path. Fix this problem I have. And then even then, I do my assessment, because you can't just, I'm fast tracking the reveal onto them. So usually process, I do assessment, and then I say, hey, do you mind if I talk without your wife here? Can I talk to your wife separately? And that one always makes people, the answer to that is always very interesting. If I say, because I say like, oh, thank you for both being here. Now I'd like to talk to your husband on his own. Is that okay? They'll be like, hey, him on his own. He'll lie to you, doctor.
It's about me.
Yeah, exactly, And then when you say to the wife, hey, you know what? I'd like to talk to your alone alcoholic husband. Can you text? He's like, you're going to listen to her. How she exaggerates everything. I'm like, hey. And I even tell them that I will not keep secrets. We'll come back and discuss it together. Can you imagine? They even get scared. That's what gives them palpitations, because they feel comfortable if I say, okay, what stays with them, stays with them. I said, no. If the patient asks me to keep something confidential, I have to keep it because the patient asking me. But when you come to addictions, I've tried everything. So usually they're a bit more open. They're like, oh, you know what? Fine, let's ask away, tell my wife. Then I come back and say, it's interesting that both of you really want to get past this stage in your relationship. Then I tell them what the wife said and what the husband said. And then it puts you all on the same page, because you have to just get it all out. So even I don't try to be sneaky. And if a patient tells me, keep it for my wife, don't tell her this. Got a patient that had a drinking problem and used to go out with like sex workers and things like that. His wife didn't know, and he was putting his wife at risk of STIs and stuff like that. So he was like, "Oh, can you keep this private? Actually, delete it off your notes." I'm like, first of all, medically legally, I can't delete off my notes. But second, I won't tell your wife about you sleeping with sex workers when you're drinking out and you say you're going out for overnight weekend. Where you said you used to claim he was working in another city, just stay in the same city in a hotel and book it out and have a binge episode. But I had this whole elaborate thing that his assistants and everyone was, anyway, it was very complicated, convoluted thing. But I told him, hey, at some point, it'd be really good to get this off your chest, and maybe either we find a way to get you out of that dynamic or talk to your wife about it. He looked at me like I had told him, like, we're going to jump off a cliff together. In fact, he was ready to die over telling his wife that, and I work it out, because sometimes I tell people, maybe you don't love your wife. Maybe it's that. I make it so open, but the guy loved his wife, and he had 2 kids as well. So he's like, ultimately, he was like, I just don't know how to talk to them about when I'm stressed. He couldn't talk to his wife, or he didn't want to show his kids he was any weaker of a man, because the man, he had done so well in business. How could he show his kids that he's vulnerable? He's not doing well. So he felt going off and getting drunk with some, people who hire sex workers was what worked for him, But I said, like, long term, we discussed it, and ultimately it did come out. The marriage actually still made it, actually. Because sometimes it doesn't make that, not everyone's going to stay with you once you admit that, which is fair enough. And you have to discuss the pros and cons. But the relief the guy felt, ultimate shame, of course, but the relief he felt and the fact that his wife stayed was like, it was like, what, you're going to stay with me, but I've been cheating on you? It's like, yeah, but at least now I know the truth. I don't like you. Don't get me wrong. We're going to fight about that. And I might hold it against you for a bit, but I'm happy that you told me and I know what's going on. And, and now we can work on that. And so keeping secrets it's a part of the reason why addiction thrives. It's all about secrets. That's why when someone dies, even DMX, addiction stories, they're everywhere. The Earl Simmons, passed on, I think it was a drug overdose. And it's funny, looking at all the past history, everyone would be like, oh, he was doing so well. And, we all knew he had drug problems, but he was about to release this good album. Exodus, hear it if you're a DMX fan, it's a good album. But we thought he was going to make a comeback, but then really there was 2 drug issues there. But then when you look at his life path, when you really quickly look at it, this guy had bad history to begin with, lots of trauma, mom, his own substance issues at a young age, baby mamas and kids everywhere, child support issues, bankruptcy, homelessness, rehab. If you look at his story and you actually really dig deep, it was always there in our face. But because we want to be, it's a rough rider, he's up, he's on the win, and we really dismissed how well someone was doing. That's why addictions always seems to surprise people, but it never does. And that's why I think I spoke to you, Shai, earlier. I want to get on tape that I was like, about those documentaries where they talk about drug addiction in a family. They always start with like the 2 parents and they're showing these old photos. Oh, I know what happened to Sam. He was such a good kid. He was so happy. The home was so good. We were trying to be good parents. And then drugs came and he overdosed and he died. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. There's usually breadcrumbs, so Hansel and Gretel type story. It's always there's something there.
Follow the trail.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you try and get them to do. And then, anyway, so that's my thing on it. It never stems from anywhere, and it comes from a lot of things. And we need to talk more openly about those things.
Hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed creating.
Don't forget to follow, like, share, and connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our latest episode and listen to any you missed. And tune in next episode.
Take care.